In just 43 seconds, $8.7 million in hidden payments would surface. Kash Patel didn't expect the ambush. He thought his confirmation was secure. Cameras captured everything. The Senate chamber froze. What did Senator Van Hollen reveal that made Trump's FBI pick collapse in real time? At exactly 2:14 p.m. on February 18th, Senator Chris Van Hollen walked into the Senate Judiciary Committee, hearing like a prosecutor who had spent sleepless nights preparing for this moment. His gray suit was impeccable, but his eyes carried the weight of someone who had seen too many powerful men escape justice. The briefcase in his left hand contained documents that would shatter Patel's carefully constructed facade. Behind Van Hollen, his chief of staff, Sarah Martinez, carried additional folders marked Confidential Treasury Debt. She had worked until 3 a.m., organizing the financial evidence, cross-referencing shell companies and offshore accounts. The paper trail was damning. Kash Patel sat at the witness table like a man who believed his own press releases. Navy suit pressed to perfection. American flag pin gleaming under the harsh committee room lights, surrounded by 3 legal advisors whispering reassurances in his ear. His hands rested confidently on the mahogany desk, occasionally adjusting his FBI director nominee pin. This was supposed to be routine questioning. To Patel's left sat his personal attorney, Rebecca Chen, frantically reviewing last-minute talking points. To his right, White House Counsel Representative David Walsh checked his phone nervously. Behind them, Trump transition team members filled the gallery seats, confident their man would sail through confirmation. The committee room itself buzzed with Washington energy. Senators Chuck Grassley and Lindsey Graham chatted about weekend-fold plans. Staffers refilled water pitchers. Photographers adjusted their camera angles. C-SPAN technicians ran final equipment checks. But Van Hollen wasn't making small talk. He studied Patel's body language, noting the way the nummie's shoulders tensed whenever anyone mentioned financial disclosures. Van Hollen's opening was surgical. "Mr. Patel, you've stated under oath that your financial disclosures are complete and accurate." Patel's response came too quickly, a rehearsed soundbite that suddenly felt hollow in the sterile air. "Absolutely, Senator. Full transparency has been my commitment from day one. I've cooperated fully with the FBI background investigation, submitted all required paperwork." "Mr. Patel," Van Hollen interrupted smoothly, "I appreciate your confidence, but I need simple yes or no answers today." The chamber hummed with routine energy. Republican senators checked their phones. Democrats shuffled papers. C-SPAN cameras rolled in their predictable rhythm. Senator Josh Hawley whispered something to Ted Cruz. Lindsey Graham adjusted his reading glasses. In the gallery, reporters sensed nothing unusual. Washington Post's Jennifer Martinez checked her Twitter notifications. Politico's Jake Sherman scrolled through fundraising emails. This was supposed to be another rubber-stamped confirmation hearing. Then Van Hollen opened his briefcase. The clicking sound of metal clasps echoed through the chamber like a gunshot. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Even the stenographer looked up from her machine. "I have here Treasury Department records showing wire transfers totaling $8.74 million between January 2023 and November 2024. Van Hollen's voice cut through the chamber like ice, each word precisely articulated. Payments made to companies you controlled, payments connected to Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi's consulting firm. The words hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Behind Patel, his legal team exchanged panicked glances. Rebecca Chen's pen froze mid-note. David Walsh's face went ashen. In the gallery, Trump transition members Steve Bannon and Donald Trump Jr. leaned forward simultaneously. CNN's Caitlin Collins grabbed her phone. Fox News producer Mike Jensen frantically texted his newsroom, "Developing story, huge financial allegations. Patel's jaw clenched like a steel trap. The American flag pin on his lapel suddenly felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. For the first time since entering the chamber, his confidence flickered. His right hand involuntarily reached for his water glass, fingers trembling almost imperceptibly. Senator, I'm not sure what documents you're referencing, but any business activities I've engaged in have been fully vetted. And Van Hollen interrupted with devastating precision, holding up a document with official Treasury Department letterhead. Apex Strategic Consulting. Ring a bell? Your signature is on the incorporation papers filed in Delaware on January. The chamber temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Republican senators stopped their side conversations mid-word. Democrats leaned forward like wolves, sensing wounded prey. Even the typically impassive stenographer paused, her fingers hovering over the keys. Patel's face drained of color. His hands, so steady moments before, trembled as he reached for his water glass. That's a legitimate business entity, Patel stammered. Any consulting work was properly disclosed. Mr. Patel, Van Hollen's voice rose. These payments occurred while you were publicly valicking for Ms. Bondi's nomination as Attorney General. $8.7 million in what appears to be coordinated influence payments. Silence. 4 seconds, cameras zooming in on Patel's face. The FBI director nominee's carefully rehearsed talking points evaporated. Sweat beaded on his forehead. His tie suddenly felt too tight. The nature of those transactions, I'd need to review. Van Hollen wasn't finished. He pulled out a second document. Should I also mention the encrypted communications between your firm and Trump transition team members? The ones discussing compensation packages for favorable positioning. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Republican Senator Josh Hawley's eyes widened. Even Ted Cruz looked uncomfortable. Patel's legal advisor frantically scribbled notes, whispering urgently in his ear. But Patel couldn't hear anything over the blood pounding in his temples. Senator, I object to the characterization. Mr. Patel, Van Hollen's voice was now ice cold, each syllable calculated for maximum impact. Did you or did you not coordinate an $8.7 million payment scheme with Pam Bondi while simultaneously working to secure her nomination and your own? The question hung in the air like smoke from a fired gun. Every camera in the room focused on Patel's face with laser precision. His mouth opened slightly, but no words came. Behind him, Rebecca Chen grabbed his shoulder in warning. David Walsh's pen snapped in half from gripping it too tightly. 43 seconds of absolute silence. The silence was deafening. In those 43 seconds, careers ended and legacies crumbled. Patel's eyes darted from Van Hollen to his attorneys to the gallery to the cameras. Sweat now visibly beaded on his forehead. His breathing became shallow, rapid. The confident FBI director nominee was disappearing before everyone's eyes, replaced by a cornered man whose carefully constructed world was imploding. In the gallery, even Trump loyalists sat stone-faced. Steve Bannon's usual smirk had vanished. Don Jr. stared at his phone, probably texting his father the devastating news. Republican senators who had planned to vote for confirmation now avoided eye contact with Patel entirely. The C-SPAN cameras captured every micro-expression, every bead of sweat, every tremor in Patel's voice. This footage would be replayed on every news network for weeks. Then Patel crumbled. His voice barely above a whisper, words that would echo through political history and become a textbook example of confirmation disaster. I invoke my Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. The words seemed to suck all oxygen from the room. Time stood still. C-SPAN operators frantically adjusted audio levels, certain they had missed something. Gallery members leaned forward in disbelief. This was unprecedented. No FBI director nominee had ever taken the fifth during confirmation. The chamber erupted like a volcano. Republican senators slammed gavels in frustrated anger. Democrats demanded immediate answers. Gallery spectators gasped audibly, phones emerging to capture the historic moment. The carefully orchestrated confirmation hearing had become a political earthquake. Senator Lindsey Graham's face went red with fury. "Mr. Patel, what the hell are you doing?" Ted Cruz buried his face in his hands. Josh Hawley frantically scribbled notes for his inevitable Fox News appearance, explaining why this wasn't what it looked like. Chairman Dick Durbin struggled to maintain order, his gavel echoing uselessly against the chaos. "The committee will come to order. The committee will come to order." Within minutes, Patelgate was trending worldwide on Twitter. CNN cut into regular programming with breaking news banners. Anderson Cooper interrupted his pre-taped segment. Fox News anchors struggled to defend the indefensible, with Sean Hannity calling for a commercial break just 30 seconds into his planned Patel defense. MSNBC's Rachel Maddow was already pulling together financial documents for an emergency primetime special. The Washington Post's Jennifer Martinez live tweeted the implosion to her 2.3 million followers. Politico's Jake Sherman had his story half written before Patel even left the building. In newsrooms across America, assignment editors scrambled. The New York Times pulled reporters from other stories. The Wall Street Journal activated its financial crimes unit. Even international outlets picked up the feed. BBC News interrupted regular programming in London. Senator Dick Durbin leaned into his microphone, his voice cutting through the chaos like a judge pronouncing sentence. "Mr. Patel, are you seriously invoking the Fifth Amendment during your FBI director confirmation hearing? The same amendment typically invoked by organized crime figures and corrupt politicians?" Patel's voice was barely audible. His earlier confidence completely evaporated. "On advice of counsel, yes, Senator." The admission hit the chamber like a physical blow. Even hardened Washington veterans, accustomed to political theater, sat stunned. This wasn't spin or deflection. This was a nominee for the FBI director's position, literally refusing to answer questions about financial crimes during his confirmation hearing. Republican Senator Susan Collins, typically measured in her responses, looked visibly shaken. "I cannot in good conscience vote for someone who invokes the fifth during their confirmation." Van Hollen stood up slowly, documents in hand like a prosecutor, presenting final evidence. "Mr. Chairman, I move to postpone this confirmation indefinitely, pending a full Department of Justice investigation into these financial irregularities." The committee room fell silent again, but this time it was the silence of a political execution. The vote was swift and brutal. Even 3 Republican senators, Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, and Mitt Romney, voted to delay, their political survival instincts overriding party loyalty. The final tally, 16-6, to postpone indefinitely. By 3:30 p.m., Patel had left the Capitol building through a side entrance, avoiding the press scrum of over 200 reporters and cameramen who had descended like vultures. His FBI dreams lay in ruins, destroyed by 43 seconds of truth and $8.7 million in unexplained payments. His legal team formed a protective barrier as they hustled toward a waiting black SUV. Rebecca Chin held a folder over Patel's face to block cameras. David Walsh fielded frantic phone calls from the White House. Behind them, protesters had already gathered with hastily made signs reading "Corrupt before confirmed" and "FBI integrity." The aftermath was immediate and devastating. Trump's transition team issued a furious statement within the hour, calling the hearing a partisan witch hunt orchestrated by deep state Democrats and rhinos. The statement notably did not defend Patel's financial dealings. Or explain the 8. Pam Bondi's office went completely dark. Her staff stopped answering phones. Her spokesperson issued a terse no comment before hanging up on reporters. Her consulting firm's website mysteriously went offline at 4:47 p.m., returning only a maintenance message. Justice Department investigators, watching the hearing live, began pulling financial records before the gavel even fell. FBI field offices in Delaware, Florida, and Washington received urgent requests for document preservation orders. Treasury Department officials started tracing the money trail that Van Hollen had only begun to expose. By evening, 3 more shell companies connected to Patel had been identified. Bank records showed additional payments totaling $2.3 million. The $8.7 million was just the beginning. That evening, Van Hollen appeared on MSNBC. When someone invokes the Fifth Amendment during a confirmation hearing, they're telling the American people they can't be trusted with the FBI. Sometimes the most powerful weapon isn't a badge or political connections, it's a senator with Treasury Department records and 43 seconds of perfect timing. What happens when a political insider's money trail finally catches up to them? If accountability can't survive transparency, was the nomination ever legitimate? If this story exposed the system's vulnerabilities, don't just watch. Subscribe to our channel where money trails get traced and confirmations get real scrutiny. Hit the bell. The next revelation might be about your representative. What would you do if you discovered $807 million in hidden payments? Drop a comment below. This dramatized story is inspired by real events and public figures. All dialogue and incidents are fictionalized for commentary and educational purposes. This is not intended to defame, but to explore themes of power, money, and accountability.